Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. My conversation this week is with Jeremy Morris, a fiduciary fee-only financial planner and co-founder and financial advisor at Five Pine Wealth Management in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Jeremy specializes in holistic financial planning and wealth management for individuals, families, and businesses, including tax planning, estate planning, retirement planning, and investment management. Now, Jeremy and his business partner, Ben, have been clients of mine for several years, and I have had the privilege of watching their business grow from the sidelines as we've worked together on their content marketing strategy over time. And when Ben and Jeremy came to me, I believe it was in early 2023, they were getting most of their clients from Google pay-per-click advertising. At the time, about 90% of their website traffic was coming from paid ads, whereas only 10% was coming from organic search results. In our work together, through adding content to their website regularly and ensuring that we're using the right keywords and working on their website with them, we've been able to take their traffic from 10% organic to 70% of their total website visitors on a month-by-month basis, and their client acquisition costs have improved dramatically. So that in just 8 years, they've been able to scale their firm to nearly 200 million in AUM. Now, I have always been very impressed by Jeremy and Ben's willingness to invest aggressively in their marketing and to test new strategies without the fear of failure. They kind of just expect some things to fail and some things to work. And so they don't get too hung up on everything needs to work 100% of the time in order for it to be a worthy thing to test. So in this conversation, Jeremy sat down with me to really pull back the curtain on the early days of launching Five Pine when he and Ben moved to Coeur d'Alene not knowing a single person and started their fee-only firm with 0 clients and 0 revenue. He shares the raw reality of those first few years, including the persistence it took to convert leads, sometimes making 15 to 20 phone calls to a single prospect, the decision to reinvest every dollar of revenue back into marketing when other advisors were spending a fraction of that amount, and how their approach to digital advertising became a key differentiator in their market. So I love how he's sharing about the evolution of their marketing strategy. They started, as a lot of advisors do, joining networking groups and Rotary clubs and things like that. Then they joined the Dave Ramsey SmartVestor program, which they are no longer a part of, to Google pay-per-click advertising, and now primarily to content marketing with some additional advertising on the side. So if you've ever wondered whether investing heavily in marketing is worth it, or how you might balance paid advertising with organic growth strategies, this episode will give you a real-world case study of what is possible with the right approach and a whole lot of persistence. So without further ado, let's dive in. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me on the Finance Marketing Podcast today. I've been so looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and your co-founder, Ben, have been clients of mine for several years now. And I would love if you would just start by sharing a little bit about who you and Five Pine Wealth Management are as a team.
Yeah, okay. So we are an SEC registered RIA, and there are 5 of us in the office. There's me and Ben, and we started the company, and then we've got a couple of admin support, and we have another junior advisor that works with us, and we're getting ready to bring on another advisor in the next month or so. So there will be 6 of us on the Five Pine team.
That's so exciting. I know you guys have experienced lots of growth in the past 5 to, is it 10 years?
8 years. It's
8
been
years.
8 years. Yeah. So yeah, we've had a lot of growth. We're knocking on the door of 200 million in 8. I think in the next 4 months we'll be there, barring any unforeseen big market drops or something like that. But yeah, and then for this year I think we're on pace to add about 25 million in AUM.
Okay. Well, what a huge milestone to reach 200 million AUM.
Yeah, we're super excited. It was, when Ben and I first started, the goal was always to hit that 100 million because we wanted to be SEC registered. And so for a long time, that was a really big goal. And then we hit 100 million, and then it seems like 200 million came really fast after that. So
You
kind of
know,
that exponential curve of growth.
I feel like I've heard a couple people say when they're talking about their clients and investments, it's like that first 100,000 is the hardest you'll ever reach. And then your next few 100,000s are going to be so much faster. Your first million is going to be
Yes,
so
that
hard to
that
reach.
has we heard that too, when we started our business. And when you're in the middle of it and when Ben and I first started, we both moved to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. That's where our business is. We both moved to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho from different areas at the same time. And so we both moved here not knowing anybody. And so the big challenge was getting started because we had zero clients. And Ben and I knew that we wanted to be fee only. We didn't want to do any commission-based investments. So building a fee only business, starting with zero clients, is really difficult because you don't have any revenue. So, Ben and I had some savings that we were able to kind of get us off of the ground. And then it was just initially, it was just trying to meet people. And Ben and I were a part of so many different organizations and Rotary, and we became members down at the Eagles in Coeur d'Alene, just trying to meet people. We were going to wine tasting events, and Ben and I don't really drink wine, but we were so desperate to meet people because we didn't have any clients and we just needed to meet people. So that was the most challenging. And when you're in the middle of that, you hear about getting to this curve, but it just took us a while to get there. And so it was kind of a struggle for a little while. And I can kind of tell you like what the breaks were and how that happened. You want to hear
Yeah.
about that?
I absolutely want to hear about that because I think that so many people, I just hear so many people talking about, okay, what got us here isn't going to get us there. They're talking about growth, and
Mhm.
reaching that next milestone. But so few people are willing to talk about those super scary, really messy early days when you just don't know if you're going to make it.
Yeah, and I think the key to that is persistence. It's not it's not intelligence. Ben and I aren't the smartest guys, but I have no doubt that we're the hardest working guys in Coeur d'Alene, especially those first couple of years. We started out in another firm, so we both joined another firm, and they were not fee only. It was a heavy commission based type of business, and we were brought into the organization as new advisors. And Ben and I were put into an office together, and so we became friends. And we both knew that we wanted to be fee only. And after about 6 months, we were like, this just isn't a good fit for us. We want to be fee only. We don't want to do all this commission based stuff. So let's just go out on our own and start our own business. And so that's what we did. And we were really, really struggling to, I went to grad school, and I have a degree in wealth management, and Ben also went to grad school. And what they don't teach you in they can prepare you as far as learning about finance and financial planning, but they don't tell you how to get clients. And
Mhm.
so you think, oh, I'm going to graduate with this degree and people are going to come to me and want me to manage their investments. And that's not how it works, as you know. And so for Ben and I, it was figuring out, okay, we have these credentials and we have this knowledge and we feel like we can do really solid financial planning for people. Well, how do we get people to know that we even exist? And how do we start getting people to trust us and say, okay, I'll let you manage my accounts? So for the first few months of starting out, that was a big challenge. We had, in the financial advising world, you have reps from different companies come into your office because they want you to use their investments. And so there was one particular guy that came into our office, and he saw that Ben and I were struggling to grow the business and find new clients. And he said, hey, have you guys thought about like doing this like Dave Ramsey thing? I know like a lot of different advisors, you can sign up for Dave Ramsey's program and you can become a certified smart vestor advisor, and they provide leads, but you have to call the leads. The leads reach out, they go to Dave Ramsey's website and they put their information in, and then that information goes to like five different advisors in your region that are also participating in the program. And so you want to be the first advisor to call them and try to connect with them and beat out the other financial advisors. And so we started that program, and Ben and I were just relentless on the phone calls. We were super obnoxious, I'm sure. We were just so persistent with the phone calls and the emails, and we were calling people on Saturdays and on holidays, and we basically we built this really big spreadsheet of all of the leads that would come in, and we would keep track of how many times we've called and how many voicemails we left. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that sometimes there were 15 phone calls and 15 voicemails and 15 emails that we were sending out. And sometimes it was on that 15th phone call where the person finally picked up and said, "Yeah, I've been getting your voicemails and I've been meaning to talk to somebody." And
Mhm.
so we were just super, super persistent. And then you get one person, and then you get two people, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And then the more revenue we started to have coming in, Ben and I we're both pretty frugal, and so we don't have a lot of overhead. And so as the revenue started coming in, we both agreed that we're just going to put that revenue back into marketing. We're not going to spend on ourselves. It's all going to go back into the business. For the first couple of years, all the revenue that we had coming in, we would just funnel that back into marketing the business so that we could keep growing. And eventually we were able to start spending money on Google advertising. So doing
Mhm.
pay-per-click advertising campaigns. And at first that was $500 a month. And then as more revenue would come in, we could get it up to $1,000 a month, and then $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month just on marketing. And for whatever reason, a lot of advisors, we found their marketing budget was like $10,000 a year.
Mhm.
And Ben and I knew that, like, if we want to grow, we want to be spending $10,000 a month on marketing. And so we were just willing to do that. And it seems like a lot of other advisors, for whatever reason, they're not willing to spend the money on marketing, and we were. And so I think that kind of helped us with our growth.
Yeah, okay, a couple of questions as you talked through that. But one thing
Yeah.
I want to point out is I do agree that you and Ben are almost an outlier. I've worked with lots of advisors over the year, and I
Yeah.
would say that you and Ben are absolutely the advisors that I've worked with who are willing to spend on marketing and willing to test on marketing as
Yeah.
well. And I
Yeah.
think that when I heard you say, we're really frugal, I almost was like, but you're willing to test things out and try things out. And if they don't work,
Yeah.
you pivot and try something else. And that's something that I really admire about you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't be afraid about spending money on things that might not work. Like you said, it's just trying a bunch of different things and finding what works. The great thing about our business and the business model is, if you spend $2,000 a month on Google advertising and you land $1 million client, well, you have revenue coming in. Let's just say you're charging 1% on $1 million. That's $10,000 a year from that new client that you've landed. And in our industry, if you're a good financial advisor, most of those clients are pretty sticky, and they're not gonna go anywhere. And so that's $10,000 of revenue from that one client, but it's year one, year two, year three, year four. You know, Potentially you're working with them for 20 years or longer, and so that's just a really long stream of revenue that you have coming in
Right.
over a really long time period. So
That's potentially growing as well as their,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you started with joining all the networking groups, Rotary, things like that.
Hmm.
And then you joined the Smart Vestor program, the Dave Ramsey program.
Yep.
Did you get your first initial clients from those networking groups, or was it not until?
Um, I think we had, just through our connections, we probably had a handful of clients. I remember Ben and I, our first, what we thought was a big account was $150,000. And
Mhm.
we were like, whoa, yes, this is so great. We've made it. We're going to be able to, we can buy a beer at the Eagles this month. It's going to be fantastic. And so we had a handful of those smaller accounts. Our first $1 million account came through the Dave Ramsey program.
Mhm.
And that was like a really big one for us when we were first starting out. So it was a combination of both, but mostly smaller ones from the networking. Later on, all of that networking stuff that we did has paid off in the long run. So one of our connections from Rotary referred a client to us. This is 8 years later now. So over this last year, she referred a client to us, and that turned into a $4 million account. So all of
Wow.
that legwork that Ben and I did in Rotary all those years ago paid off with, I'm sure there are others, but I can think of recently a $4 million account that we can attribute to that networking stuff that we did. So
Wow. I
yeah.
just want to remind you to just as you're kind of looking back and you're excited about a $150,000 account. Just last week, you and I were having a meeting and you said, I think we may have to move our minimum up to 1 million.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny how your perspective changes, Obviously when you don't have any revenue coming in and you just, and again, being fee only, it takes a while for that revenue to come in and to make an impact on your business. So yeah, that 150,000 at the time was really big. And then
Mhm.
we increased our minimum to 500,000 just because you get so busy managing accounts. There's only so much time between Ben and I. And if we're doing sometimes 2 reviews per household, your meetings get filled up really quickly. And being that there's only two of us, you have to be more selective in what you're willing to take on as clients. And that is tough for Ben and I because we started the business because we wanted to help people, and we never wanted to be those advisors that tell people, well, you don't have enough money to work with us, so we're not going to take your call, basically. And so we figured out some ways that we can help people even if they don't have the minimum. So we'll offer a financial plan. We'll do a financial plan for people, so it's just a flat fee. We'll usually charge $1,500 for a full financial plan. If somebody wants to do that, we found a lot of times, for whatever reason, people don't like writing that $1,500 check, and
Mhm.
so they're like, yeah, I'll think about it. They would much rather you manage assets and pay you that way, So we do some financial plans, but the bulk of our business is a. And
Mhm.
then I think I was telling you last week that a lot of times I'll just give people an hour of my time for free. So somebody says, I've only got $100,000 and I don't know what to do. I say, okay, come into the office. I'll sit down with you for an hour and I'll show you exactly what I would do if I was in your situation. And then that works out too, because sometimes it's a really good meeting and they're super appreciative and they'll leave us a Google review on Google. And to me, that's worth it because that helps for our marketing and for the search algorithm and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of see it as a trade-off for my time. Yeah, I'm not getting any direct revenue from that meeting, but it can still pay off in the future.
Right. Absolutely. And maybe capping those meetings in the future to, 2 meetings a month. And then anyone
Yeah,
and after that, you
exactly.
next month start a wait list or something.
Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Okay. Do you still belong to the networking groups like Rotary?
No,
No.
no, we love it. It's just we got so busy
Hmm.
that the business just took more and more of our time. Ben used to be, he was the head trustee at the Eagles, and that was a lot of his time. And just as the business grew, so much more of our time had to go to the business that a lot of those extracurricular things that we were doing, we kind of had to drop. So that might change in the future as we bring on this other advisor and we can kind of split up the workload a little bit so that we have a little bit better of a work-life balance and we can get back into some of that stuff. But right now, yeah, we're just pretty busy with the business. So
Do- Are you still part of the SmartVestor program?
we're not. We just because again, once you hit scale and the business gets so big, then you start getting referrals. And then we found the SmartVestor program's great. It seemed like in Coeur d'Alene, the lead quality changed a little bit for whatever reason. And then it didn't make financial sense for us to be a part of the program based on the leads that we were seeing come in. So we dropped that program and then just shifted basically to our advertising dollars going basically into the Google pay-per-click type advertising,
Yeah.
which is great for whatever reason. I don't know if it's that a lot of advisors are older and they're just not familiar with digital online marketing, but at least in our region, Ben and I kind of have the corner on that market as far as digital advertising and pay-per-click advertising. And so that was just a differentiator for us that other advisors in our area, for whatever reason, are not doing. And so that's where we get most of our leads now. And then obviously with the more traffic that comes to the website and the better our advertising campaigns are performing, and then all of the work you guys are doing with the content that you create for us and the blog posts, our organic traffic to our website has increased a lot in the last 2 years. So that now most of our traffic is organic traffic. So we're
Mm-hmm.
still running the pay-per-click campaigns and we're still spending, I think our ad spend right now is about $4,000 a month for the Google ads, but most of our traffic is organic. So
Yeah, I think watching the evolution over the last few years of working with you has been really interesting because I think when we first started working together, I think you told me about 10% of our traffic is organic right now and 90%
yeah,
is from Google ads. And then I
yep,
know a couple of years ago, you told me it was about 50-50. And
yep,
then we looked at it. I went and looked at it after our meeting last week, and you were right. It coming from Google, it's like 70% organic now and 30% from the
yeah.
which is amazing.
Yeah, those are all clicks that you're not paying for, which is great. For the Google pay-per-click stuff, I think our average cost per click is somewhere between 17 and $25 per click. That's a lot of money to get one person to come through to your website. So the
Click.
higher you can, yeah, so the higher you can get that ratio of the organic traffic to pay-per-click, that just really changes the numbers and what your cost is for bringing in new business.
Right. Absolutely. And then we also right now are working on some Facebook and driving
Yeah.
the website through Facebook. And that
Yep.
strategy we're still very much in flux with. We're not really sure if it's working yet or not, which is
Yeah.
just part of marketing. But I think you told me too, that's increased the website traffic a lot as
It
well.
has. Yeah. And I was just looking at it the other day. The traffic has significantly increased from paid social. That's brought in a whole nother, I think, 30% more traffic at least to our website. I was looking at it the other day. A lot of it is people come in and they bounce out pretty quickly on the paid social stuff, but there's still a handful that come in and stick around on the website. And then I need to do a better job of figuring out, like, once we do convert a lead, figuring out exactly where that lead came from. And I know last week we talked about adding a drop down menu on the form submission to say, hey, how did you hear about us?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great idea. And that will help us figure out exactly what our ROI is on the paid social stuff. So,
Right, right. Which I did add that to your
okay,
form.
great. Awesome.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Yeah, and hopefully too. I mean, I'm excited for 2026 because I think 2026, our goal is to really grow the email list and have you being able
Yep.
to nurture leads on the email list as well. And I think that'll be another really powerful way to almost kind of decrease your reliance on ad spend once you get people into the email list and you start growing that
Yes.
as well, because then you have
Yeah.
those forever.
Yeah. And Ben and I talk about it. It's advertising has been so successful and our ROI has been so good that we don't want to turn it off. But
Yeah.
we're also at the point where Ben and I are like, we can't really take on more clients and service them in the way that we want to. And so that's why we're really looking forward to bringing on this new advisor so that we can keep the advertising going, keep growing the leads coming in so that we can funnel the business to the new advisor. Because I mean, we could shut it off and our business is successful, but it's such a good thing and it's so successful. We don't want to shut it off. So
Right, absolutely. Well, maybe as we start to wrap up, can you share with us what some of your goals are for 2026?
for 2026, yeah, the big goal is bring onboarding the new advisor.
Mm,
And then she she's super smart, but she doesn't have a lot of experience meeting with families and running meetings. That's just something that you have to gain experience by doing it, right? So for 2026, our goal is her name's Jeanette, is to bring on Jeanette and basically do as many meetings with her as we possibly can. Have her sit in on meetings with us so that she learns how to run a meeting, what kind of questions to ask, how to connect with people, how to garner trust from somebody. That's a big thing in our business. I feel like that's something that Ben and I are really good at is, for a long time before we got so busy, Ben and I we would insist on doing all of our meetings with a new prospect together. So
Mm,
every meeting, they were meeting with both of us at one time. And that just increased the probability that either Ben or I would be able to connect with them on some level.
mm,
And so that was kind of a strategy that we had. We would always do the meetings together so that one of us would be able to connect with them on something.
mm,
Um, that's that's a really big part in converting leads. I had somebody come in 2 weeks ago, and we're doing the meeting, and the first 20 minutes of the meeting, we're not talking about finances at all. We're asking them questions about where they're from, where they grew up, what their childhood was like, where did they meet their spouse. And he said, I met with four other advisors before I came in and met with you guys, and not one of them asked me any of these questions. And I'm so appreciative that you guys wanted to get to know me and find out who I am before you figured out whether or not you could, your service was a good fit for me. So circling back, helping Jeanette learn those skills is a big priority for 2026. So that's going to be kind of a long-term thing. Numbers wise, we've been adding 20 to 25 million in A every year. And so our goal is to do that again this year. Ideally, we would like to get Jeanette up to a book of between 50 and 100 million in A that she has a self-sustaining book of business. And so that's a big goal. Figuring out the paid social stuff and getting leads, getting people into the email list, figuring out what works there is a big goal. What else can you think of goals
mm.
wise?
I think that was really helpful. You have a specific numbers growth goal, internal
Yeah.
goal, and marketing goal. I think that's great.
Yeah, and we're at almost 200 million now. Ben and I don't really want to get too much bigger.
Mm,
We don't we like being advisors and we like meeting with our clients. We don't want to have an office of 10 different advisors to where all of a sudden Ben and I are just managing other people. At that point, you're just like a CEO of a company. You're not doing meetings anymore. Ben
right.
and I really like that part of the business. And so I see us bringing on Jeanette and then maybe one more advisor in the future.
Mm,
And then at that point, I don't know what we do with our marketing. If we
right.
keep it going, or do we, as painful as it is, like pull the plug on it and say, okay, no more growth.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, we'll figure that out.
Yeah. Well, that's such an exciting place to be, to feel like where your business is almost where you want it to
It's
be.
I think it's surreal for both Ben and myself, just coming from where we started and not having any clients and not knowing how much revenue you're going to have coming in and whether or not you're going to be able to pay your bills. And I think Ben and I joke when we first started out, I think there was a period of time where, because we didn't have any money, I think I ate beans for dinner for like 15 days in a row
Oh my God.
because yeah, because we were just struggling. And so now to be in a position where we're like, okay, I don't think we want to grow anymore is we feel super blessed, and I'm super happy to be in that position, but it's still like pinch yourself because it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jeremy, is there anything that I haven't asked you yet that you feel like is pertinent to this conversation about your journey over the past 8 years?
I don't think so. I think, other advisors, they see the success that Ben and I have had. And the one piece of advice that I always give people is it doesn't spending money on advertising and getting leads to come in is really important, but even more important than that is the persistence of following up and reaching out and being willing to make the phone calls. And like I said, when we first started, it was sometimes 15, 20 phone calls, and you just have to be willing to go through that burn of no success, just knowing it takes one, and eventually it's going to pay off. And it's a really hard wall for people to push through. And I think in this industry, that's really what separates successful business owners from non-successful business owners is your willingness to suffer and your willingness to just push through and persistence. And I've heard people tell me that in the past, like, you've got to be persistent, you've got to be persistent. And it's so true. There is no replacement for persistence and grinding. and being willing to make that extra phone call that the advisor down the street is not making that phone call. So
Mm.
that is like the biggest for our success. That was the biggest key. And I was fortunate in that I had a partner that is the hardest worker I've ever met in my entire life and puts me to shame. That's just the way he's wired. He's just a go, go, go. And so we're sitting in an office together and he's making a phone call. He gets off the phone, I make a phone call, and we're just back and forth making phone calls and sending emails. And so we kind of fed off of each other in that regard. So I feel blessed that we had each other. So that was super helpful. But yeah, just be persistent and do the hard work, and it might take a couple of years, but the payoff is so huge. Here we are 8 years later, and we went from not knowing anybody in Coeur d'Alene, having zero clients, to now working with 300 households.
Right, right. Well,
So
Jeremy, if people want to learn more about Five Pine or connect with you, where are the best places for them to do that?
yeah, fivepinewealth.com is probably the easiest. I'm on X, not super active account, but Jeremy Morris, Coeur d'Alene, you can find me on X. But yeah, the website is the easiest, fivepinewealth.com.
Cool. Well, I'll link to it in the show notes. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for coming
Yeah,
on.
thanks for having me, Hillary. Thanks for
Absolutely.
everything you do for us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.